Joining me now is the 70th Secretary of State and Fox News contributor, Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for being here this morning.
Good morning, Maria.
So here we are. 4 more hostages are dead. The president continues to pressure Netanyahu and Israel about retaliating after an unprovoked attack which killed so many on October 7th. And he's actually saying that Israel wants a ceasefire when it's not exactly what Netanyahu said. Your reaction to all of this?
Maria, the administration got it right on day 1 and day 2, and since then has had it all backwards. They've put all the pressure on the victim, the folks who were attacked, who had over 1,000 of their own citizens killed, instead of putting pressure on Hamas. The terms for a ceasefire would be Hamas laying down its weapons, that is the total defeat of Hamas, and the return of all the hostages, at least those that are remaining in the bodies of those who have perished in captivity. I can't understand for the life of me. President Biden comes out through Admiral Kirby last week and says, "Oh my gosh, there's this deal out there." That was not remotely true about there being a proposal from the Israelis that was as described. It fundamentally misunderstands the threat, not only to Israel from Iran, but to the Middle East and to America from this very threat. They're trying to put pressure on the good guys, the folks who are trying to protect themselves, and giving courage and succor to the terrible atrocities that took place now almost 8 months ago, Maria.
Well, I mean, why do we give the same equal weight to those who committed the atrocities, Hamas and Israel? I mean, yeah, we're saying that Israel says it's Hamas is saying it's a non-starter to resume fighting after the hostages are released. Well, who cares what Hamas wants? They started this.
Yeah, let's be clear. What's that saying? That's saying they want the ability to do October 7th over and over and over again. They've said it implicitly. They've said it expressly. They want to keep their weapons. They want to have conducted this attack and still walk out of this thing with political control in Gaza, which they had before, and the capacity to build out their weapon systems and terror teams. This is what Hamas wants, and President Biden continues to give them a lifeline to do that. You've seen the disasters with this floating pier. No food's actually been delivered in any material amount to the innocent people in Gaza. This has been an American policy that invited precisely this kind of attack. And Maria, don't forget, you still have the Iranians on the Israeli northern border in the form of Hezbollah. You've got the Houthis that it sounds like we struck a few times yesterday, disrupting commercial traffic in the Persian Gulf and in the Red Sea. This is really dangerous stuff, and the Biden administration refuses to go to the heart of the problem, which is Iran.
Well, I mean, and that is the issue here, right? South Carolina Senator Tim Scott and New York Congressman Mike Lawler introduced a resolution for the administration to censure Iran at this week's International Atomic Energy Agency Board of Governors meeting. It would also reaffirm all measures are being taken to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. Senator Scott said in a statement this: censuring Iran at the IAEA is the first step we can take to restore deterrence in the Middle East. For months, the Biden administration has ignored our calls to take a stand against Iran. It's far past time to act. Secretary, you said this umpteen times. There's no deterrence at all. No plans in place to deter Iran.
Maria, the West has lost that deterrence. Even the sanctions that remain in place on Iran, the Biden administration is refusing to enforce. And you know this, Maria, a sanction without enforcement is absolutely useless. It's a paper tiger. And let's just look at 3.5 years after the Trump administration left. Closer to a nuclear weapon, more enriched uranium, taunting the IAEA and basically saying we're not going to comply with any of your requirements. Now conducting terror campaigns in Israel and across the Middle East. This is an Iran that feels like it can move about the cabin because the administration simply refuses to do the same set of policies we had in place for 4 years, which had begun to push back against Iran and deny them the capacity, both the weapons and the money, to be the world's largest state sponsor of terror. This is really dangerous for America, Maria, not just for those folks living in the Middle East.
Well, on your leadership, you had the Abraham Accords. How hard is it going to be to patch this thing up, to try to get peace once again throughout the Middle East after this?
We can get it back, Maria. There's a lot of goodwill in the region from the Gulf Arab states, certainly from Israel. It just requires an American team that's prepared to defend them, to do the right thing by them, and understands that America will take serious responses when Iran misbehaves.
Yeah, as opposed to a team that leads through politics. Anything that affects the vote or their grip on power is a non-starter. I want to ask you about China because it's a similar situation. This administration fails to push back on China's behavior. A Taiwan defense expert told Fox News Digital that China is afraid of a Trump re-election. He said, quote, if China's attitude is to maintain the stability and peace in the Taiwan Strait and increase relations between the U.S. and China, then either is no problem. But if China shows increased aggressive posture, which of course they are, I think China would be more afraid of Trump than Biden. Secretary, your thoughts on this as you were there leading the effort against China. President Trump and your efforts were among the toughest against communist China. And now everything's been reversed.
Yes, they've largely undone the set of policies that had been in place that had begun to convince Xi Jinping to behave in a way that was more consistent with international norms. Look, he wants global hegemony. There's no doubt about that. The only thing he understands is power. And so we must respond every time in kind. You said this. So many small things accumulate in the Philippines, things that are happening in the South China Sea today, Chinese actions that threaten the United States of America and our forces in the region. If we don't respond, if we just simply say, oh, that's small, we're going to let them get away with it. Maria, you know how this ends. This ends with continued aggression, continued testing, and this will be certainly bad for the people of Taiwan and the region, but presents a real risk to the people of the United States as well.
I mean, like, what's small, right? I mean, you're saying we let small things go. We're letting big things go, okay? There's been no accountability for unleashing COVID. Was it a bioweapon? We don't know. What do you think? What about a surveillance balloon traveling the country for a whole week before shooting it down? How about intellectual property theft? How about fentanyl flowing through the border? So all this stuff, I don't have any evidence of Biden pushing back on China for any of it.
No, there's very little to none. There's no doubt about that. When I say small, I'm talking about relative, Maria, to the things that could befall us. Now, make no mistake about it. Whether it's fentanyl or intellectual property, we push back against those. President Trump did a fantastic job on each of those. And the stuff that's happening in the South China Sea today, just wait till the Chinese decide that they can move in a way that truly restricts commerce in the region. This will be bad for the economy. And the Biden administration has shown no willingness to even do more than just go to have meetings and claim, gosh, we're talking, so this must be good. It's dangerous, Maria. We're going to have to respond to this. Xi Jinping is unlikely to respond in a way that is good for America until America forces him to see that the costs of his activity exceed the benefit of what he's doing.
I mean, it feels like it's even worse than doing nothing. Actually, Biden is going ahead and making things better for China. When he walked into the Oval Office, they canceled your China initiative. Tell us the significance of the China initiative and what happened since.
Murray, we've talked about this. One of the biggest risks of China isn't in Taiwan or in the South China Sea, but in Dallas and Los Angeles and in New York City. They're inside the gates. And our effort was to find these folks who were conducting espionage, to push back against Chinese propaganda inside the gates, here inside the United States. And the Biden administration's Justice Department got rid of that the moment they walked in. The Chinese Communist Party saw this as a green light, Maria. You can see it, and presented an enormous risk to all of us.
Yeah, not only that, but in the NDAA, the National Authorization Act, they claim to ban Chinese companies from doing business in the United States. But what did they not do? They didn't rip out all the networking equipment that's already there, right? Huawei, Hytera, there's all these Chinese companies that are inside the gates in America. Are they surveilling and spying on everybody right now?
Maria, it is almost certain that if you see Chinese Communist Party equipment, if you see technology, surveillance things, even things as simple as LCD screens, if you begin to see those things, you can be sure that the Chinese Communist Party is not doing that just to make a nickel. They're doing it to advance their political and military objectives and their global power. We have to be more serious about this. Frankly, Congress needs to be more serious about it as well. We have to understand that there'll be an impact on the American economy. There'll be businesses that have to change the way they're doing business today. So be it. We've got to keep America safe, and we have to get this right.
Secretary, it's so great to talk with you about this subject that you know so well. We appreciate your time this morning, sir.
Thank you, Maria. Bless you. Have a good day.
You too. Secretary Mike Pompeo this morning.